Welcome back to the Metaphysics Podcast. I'm Dennis Goddard, and with me is Louise Hex.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Today, we are diving deep into a concept that really kind of blew me away from Neville Goddard's 1944 book, Feeling is the Secret.
Oh, a classic.
Yeah, and the idea is that consciousness is actually undivided, but appears to us as this dual system, conscious and subconscious.
Right. It's like two sides of the same coin, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a really important idea for anyone, especially our listeners who are into manifesting and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, understanding how these two parts of ourselves work together is, well, key to really understanding how we create our reality, wouldn't you say?
For sure. So where do we even begin with this idea of an undivided consciousness?
Well, I think Goddard's main point is that the world is a reflection of our consciousness, he says, and I love this quote, the world and all within it is man's conditioned consciousness objectified.
Wow, so like our inner world is projected outward.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're constantly creating our reality based on what's going on inside of us.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this connects to manifesting and the law of attraction and all that. But what about the conscious and subconscious? Where do they fit in?
Well, Goddard compares consciousness to a stream that's divided into two parts.
Okay,
The conscious mind is like the male aspect, the initiator, the idea generator.
so that's where our thoughts and plans and intentions come from.
Exactly. But then there's the subconscious, which is like the female aspect, the creative force that gives those ideas form and expression.
Interesting. So the conscious mind is like the architect drawing up the blueprints, and the subconscious mind is the construction crew that brings those plans to life.
Perfect analogy. And the key that links these two, the language they speak, is feeling.
Okay, so that's where the title of the book comes in.
Right. Goddard says feeling is the one and only medium through which ideas are conveyed to the subconscious.
So our feelings are like the energy that activates those blueprints and gets the whole construction process going.
Precisely. And the thing is, we shouldn't try to suppress our feelings, whether good or bad, but learn how to actually work with them.
That's interesting because a lot of self-help stuff I've seen says to just think positive and ignore the negative.
Yeah, but Goddard says what you feel you are always dominates what you feel you would like to be. You see?
Oh, I get it. So like, even if we try to force ourselves to feel positive, those negative feelings are still there under the surface.
Exactly. And they can end up shaping our reality even more powerfully than our conscious desires, he says.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can try, but eventually it's going to pop back up.
Haha, exactly. So we need to figure out how to work with our feelings instead of against them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how do we do that? I mean, how do we actually use this knowledge about feeling to manifest what we want?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something we're definitely going to explore in more detail as we, keep going with this deep dive. But
Yeah.
but before we get into that, what really stands out to you so far about this whole idea of consciousness being both undivided and dual?
Well, what I'm really struck by is that it kind of, I don't know, challenges this idea that we're just at the mercy of our subconscious, right? Like it's this mysterious force we can't control.
Yeah.
But Goddard's saying that we're not powerless. If we can learn to work with the language of feeling, we can actually communicate with our subconscious and use its power to shape our reality.
I think that's a very empowering idea, don't you? That we're not just victims of circumstance, but actual creators of our own experience.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that will resonate with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah.
For those of you just joining us, we're diving deep into Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret and this whole idea of consciousness being undivided, but also having this dual aspect, conscious and subconscious. And we'll be exploring this in much more detail, looking at the rules of sleep, prayer, and even belief in shaping our reality. But for now, we're going to take a quick break. Don't forget to like this episode, subscribe to the Metaphysics Podcast, and leave us a comment with your thoughts so far. We'd love to hear from you.
We'll be back in a flash. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about how our feelings can actually bridge the gap between our conscious and subconscious minds.
Yeah, it's like speaking the language of the subconscious, right?
Exactly.
So how do we use that? I mean, how do we actually use this knowledge to create the reality that we want?
Well, Otter talks about these two really powerful gateways to the subconscious, sleep and prayer.
Sleep. I mean, that seems so passive. How can we actively manifest while we're, snoozing?
It's not about doing something while you're asleep. It's about the state of consciousness just before sleep. Goddard calls it the natural door into the subconscious. He says that as we drift off, our last waking thoughts and feelings become incredibly potent, almost like seeds, being planted in the fertile ground of the subconscious mind.
Okay, so like if I go to sleep feeling stressed out or anxious, those feelings are more likely to I don't know, manifest in my waking life?
Exactly. He says that we need to go to sleep feeling satisfied, embodying the feeling of the wish fulfilled.
Like already having what we want.
Right. Because he says in sleep, man impresses the subconscious with his conception of himself. So if we can fall asleep feeling the joy and gratitude of already having what we desire, well, we're essentially programming our subconscious to create that reality, you see.
So it's almost like setting an intention, right? For our dreams and for, well, even for the day ahead. Instead of letting our worries and anxieties take over, we consciously choose to fall asleep feeling content and fulfilled.
I love that. Yeah, it's about gently guiding our focus and cultivating a sense of peace and contentment as we drift off. Now, what about prayer? I know this might be a sensitive topic for some people, but Goddard offers a really interesting perspective on it.
I'll be honest, I've always been kind of skeptical about prayer. Like it always felt a bit like begging for what I wanted. How does Goddard approach it?
Well, he doesn't see it as begging at all. He says it's a state akin to sleep where the mind is receptive to suggestion. It's about entering a state of deep receptivity, kind of like that relaxed, open state of mind we experience just before sleep.
Okay, so it's not about pleading with a higher power to give us what we want.
No, no, not at all. It's about aligning our feelings with our desires. In fact, he says, your prayer must be answered if you assume the feeling that would be yours were you already in possession of your objective.
So again, it all comes back to feeling, right? It's not enough to just passively wish for something. We need to actually actively embody the feeling of already having it.
You're getting it. It's about consciously choosing the feeling that aligns with our desired outcome, even if our current reality doesn't quite match up yet.
Okay, that makes sense. So like, if I want to manifest abundance, I need to cultivate that feeling of gratitude and abundance, even if I'm currently struggling financially.
Yes, exactly. And this is where Goddard introduces this idea of spirit feeling, which I find so fascinating.
Spirit feeling, that sounds a bit, I don't know, mystical. What does that even mean?
It's about going beyond just thinking about what you want and actually embodying the feeling of already being the person you want to be or having what you desire. Not pretending, but actually shifting your consciousness.
Ah, so it's like an actor, right? Immersing themselves in a role.
Perfect analogy. And remember, the subconscious is always expressing our deepest beliefs about ourselves. So if we can shift our inner state to one of already having what we want, we're sending a powerful message to the subconscious to make that a reality.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to manifesting. It's not about visualizing a bunch of stuff I want and then hoping it magically appears. It's about embodying the feeling of already having it. And that programs my subconscious to create it.
That's a brilliant insight. It connects to the bigger picture. I mean, if our reality is a reflection of our consciousness, what are our current beliefs creating?
That's a powerful question.
Right?
It's like holding up a mirror to our inner world, like really seeing what's being reflected back to us.
Exactly. And if we don't like what we see, we have the power to change it, right?
By changing our beliefs, our feelings, and ultimately our consciousness.
Precisely.
So if we want to manifest abundance, we need to shift our inner state to a state of abundance.
Exactly. It's about aligning our inner world with the reality we want to create.
Wow, this is mind-blowing stuff. And I bet our listeners are just as fascinated by this as we are. And I know they're probably eager to hear more about how to actually put these ideas into practice.
Oh, speaking of.
But we're going to have to save that for our next deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show. We've been exploring Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret, and this incredible idea that we can actually shape our reality through the power of feeling.
It really is mind-blowing, isn't it?
Totally. And we were just talking about how if our reality is a reflection of our consciousness, then to change our world, we need to change our inner state.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest keys to that is aligning our beliefs with our desires, remember?
Right.
Like Goddard said, you never attract that which you want, but always attract that which you are. Powerful, right?
So if we're always doubting ourselves or focusing on what we lack, we're just reinforcing those negative beliefs.
Exactly. It's like sending mixed signals to our subconscious mind. We say one thing with our conscious desires, but then our underlying beliefs are telling a totally different story.
So how do we fix that? I mean, how do we start transmitting a clear signal of what we actually want to create? It can be hard to change those deep-seated beliefs, especially when our reality doesn't seem to match up.
It does take effort, yeah. But Goddard gives us some tools, things like visualization, affirmations, even gratitude, to kind of reprogram our subconscious mind.
So it's not just about positive thinking. It's about embodying the feeling of already having what we desire.
Exactly. And it's not about ignoring negative feelings when they pop up, but acknowledging them and choosing to focus on what we want to experience instead.
Like we're training our minds to see the world differently, through a lens of abundance and possibility.
I love that. Yeah. That's where spirit feeling comes in, really stepping into the role of the person we want to be, feeling those emotions and embodying that energy.
So we're kind of acting as if.
In a way, yeah, but not fake. It's about convincing our subconscious that our wish is already fulfilled, and then it can get to work making it a reality.
Wow. This deep dive into feeling is the secret has been amazing. It's incredible how relevant Goddard's work still is, even though it was published way back in 1944.
Those timeless truths, right? This idea that our minds can shape our reality, it's been around for centuries.
What would you say is the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember today?
I think the most important thing is that you're not just a passive observer in your life, you are a creator. And your most powerful tool, the power of feeling, you see.
Wow, that's powerful stuff.
Learn to work with your feelings, align your beliefs with your desires, embody that feeling of the wish fulfilled, and you can change your reality.
Such an inspiring message. And for our listeners who want to learn more, we highly recommend checking out Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret. It's a short book, but it can really change your perspective.
Absolutely.
And of course, to keep exploring these metaphysical ideas, be sure to subscribe to the Metaphysics podcast, like this episode, and leave us a comment. We always love hearing from you.
We do.
Until next time, keep exploring the power of your mind. And remember, feeling is the secret.